Have you ever wondered why you can read out Chinese tones perfectly, but every time when you speak, your tones just go all over the place? Here's the harsh truth. Even if you spend time learning tones, you may still make mistakes when speaking, and that's simply because you are human. Tones are pitch patterns in our voice that we use to distinguish word meanings. But you know what else uses pitch in our languages? Intonation. When you speak, you can use intonation to express your emotions and attitude. Him, 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 him. But if you do this in Chinese, 他, 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 it sounds very strange. But you still want to sound like a human when you talk, right? If you talk without any intonation, then you sound like a robot.
就像我一样，哈哈。
When I was teaching in the US, I noticed something peculiar. Many of my students could read words with perfect tones, but as soon as they tried to express any emotion or attitude, their tones would fall apart. For example, when they heard something surprising, they often said, 真的吗? It should actually be 真的吗? And I realized that this mistake isn't random at all, because they all make the same error, and the pitch of 真的吗 happens to match the intonation of really in their native language. That's when I realized that many learners make tonal mistakes probably because they want to sound like a human instead of being like this. Oh, 真的吗? 我不相信. So I decided to dig deeper into this, which led me to run an experiment for my master thesis to see how emotion affects tones of learners. I recruited 8 native English speakers who had intermediate to advanced Chinese and 8 native Chinese speakers. I tested their Chinese tones under different emotional states. Basically, I gave them different scenarios and had them do scripted conversations with a native speaker. I also tested their tones in a neutral state, just to see how they sound without any emotional influence. And to check whether their native language intonation plays a role, I had them do the same scenarios in English and looked at their pitch there as well. After collecting all the audio files, I spent a lot of time analyzing the data, running code, and doing some basic stats. And ta-da! Here is what I found. When these learners use tones without any emotion, they do really well. Their tone accuracy is very high. However, when emotions are involved, the tone accuracy drops. Learners make more tone mistakes, which results in a higher score on our scale. And here is the interesting part. Just as I suspected, these mistakes aren't random at all. They follow a clear pattern. For example, when expressing surprise, English speakers tend to use a question intonation like this.
It's his?
It's his?
Now let's look at a comparison of how a native Chinese speaker and a learner say 是他的 in a surprised way. The red line shows the native speaker's pitch, and the blue line shows the learner's pitch. You can see that the learner's pitch is strongly influenced by the intonation of their native language. Let's listen to how the learners say it.
是他的。
是他的。
Now listen to native speakers.
是他的。
是他的。
Here is another one. When expressing excitement, English speakers tend to use an extra high pitch on the stress word, like this.
It's yours.
It's yours.
And many learners also bring this habit to Chinese. Here's how a native speaker and a learner say 是你的 with excitement. On the word that they want to stress, which is 你 in this case, the learner raises its pitch. So it sounds like this.
是你的。
是你的.
However, you can see that even under excitement, native speakers still maintain the third tone characteristic, which is low.
是你的.
是你的. Unlike strong and intense emotions, when expressing low energy emotions like disappointment, boredom, or tiredness, speakers tend to use a flatter intonation, like this.
It's green.
It's green.
So when learners express similar feelings in Chinese, they might make their tones pretty flat like this.
是绿的.
是绿的.
This is how some learners say 是绿的 in a tired mood, and their intonation clearly resembles English. By contrast, native speakers still keep the tone pattern on the highlighted word 绿, even when they sound tired.
是绿的.
是绿的.
From the examples above, it's obvious that your native language also uses pitch in a certain way. So you need to be aware of that and make sure it doesn't affect your Chinese tones. But you may be thinking, how can I keep my tones correct while still showing emotion? Although Chinese is a tonal language, we can still speak while showing emotions and attitudes. There have been studies that tested how Chinese tones are produced in different emotional states and found that native speakers actually use different pitch ranges to express different emotions. So instead of moving your pitch linearly up and down like in English, Chinese speakers keep the tonal patterns and pronounce them with different pitch ranges to signal emotion and attitude. For example, when we are surprised, we pronounce the 4 tones higher. When we are sad, we pronounce them lower, but still keep their original pattern. Additionally, what's really interesting is that there can also be an extra rising or falling pitch added at the end of the final tone to show emotions. For instance, this research found that native speakers added an extra falling pitch when they're angry. Let me give you an example. If someone asks me, 你有没有水? Do you have water? And I want to reply, yes, I do. The first time I would say 有 with a simple low falling tone, or a full third tone, 有 to make it clear. But if I have already answered several times and the other person keeps asking, I will start to feel annoyed. To express that annoyance, I could say 有 I'm saying the same word, but I used a different intonation, so people can get that I feel annoyed. Let's see some more examples.
我哪有？
我打电话打不通。
These are things that are often overlooked and not really taught, but they're actually essential if you want to sound natural. That's why I'm so interested in this topic and have spent a lot of time really trying to understand how Chinese tones and sounds work in real natural speech. And to teach this in a more clear and systematic way, I've spent years diving into this field and eventually create an online course. Let me briefly introduce this course for those of you who want your Chinese to sound more natural. After that, I will summarize the key takeaways from today's video. So in this course, you will first learn the basics of Chinese tones to build a solid foundation. Then we will look at how tones are adjusted in natural spoken Chinese, as well as how sounds are reduced in fast speech. After that, we move on to intonation. We will learn how to use it to emphasize words, ask questions, and express emotions and attitudes. And by the way, the course also includes many practice activities, so you're not just listening, you will be actively engaged and improving as you go. If you're interested, you can check out this course through the link in the description and comments. And to celebrate the course launch, I'm offering a time-limited special price. You will save $50 and get full access to the entire course. That means each lesson costs less than $6 on average. Don't miss this opportunity. Alright, now let's quickly sum up the key takeaways from this video. If you make mistakes with Chinese tones, just remember that's totally normal. In your native language, you have been using pitch in a certain way. For example, in English, your pitch can move up and down freely to express emotions and attitudes. And those habits often carry over when you speak Chinese. So the first important step is simply becoming aware of these habits and understanding that Chinese expresses intonation differently because it has to work together with tones. Then try your best to keep the characteristics of Chinese tones when you speak. And finally, get used to how native Chinese speakers use intonation by observing them more and imitating them. Or if you want a faster way, you can take my course to learn the underlying rules so you can level up more efficiently. Finally, I'd like to thank all the participants in my experiment as well as my thesis supervisor, Professor Liu. Thank you all for making this experiment possible. Because of you, we have these new findings and can help more Chinese learners. Alright, if you found today's video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone who might need it. And if you'd like to support my work and get access to exclusive Chinese learning content, check out my Patreon. The link is in the description. I hope to see you there. 那我们下次见喽，拜拜。